Howdy folks, today I'm going to teach you how to ride a motorcycle in slow speeds. This is where a lot of beginner riders get kind of tripped up. This is where a lot of embarrassment and frustration can happen, or you tip your bike over in a parking lot, or you're kind of waddling awkwardly. Because while bikes are a lot of fun to ride, they can often be very confusing to ride slow speeds because they kind of work a little backwards. So, a little bit of background on me. I've been riding motorcycles for 11 years now. I'm certified to teach the BRC, that's the basic rider course for the MSF. I've done some club racing, lots of track days, so I am a experienced rider here to tell you how to do this. Today we're working with my Aprilia Touareg 660. This is my personal daily bike. I figured we would leave the very loud 210 V4 at home. That's our giveaway bike right now on yamanube.co. This one's a little quieter and easier to demonstrate. So right off the bat, the first thing you want to know when riding slow speeds is you want familiarity with your motorcycle. The first thing you need to know is how much of a steering sweep do you have. That's the distance from lock to lock on the front wheel. So I'll show you guys here, this bike has a super generous lock to lock. So that means tight maneuvers, parking lot maneuvers, very easy with the motorcycle like this. If you're riding a super sport or something that has low clip-ons and has a shallow steering sweep, that's going to be harder to do slower speeds, but not impossible. You simply have to get your technique right. The next thing, of course, is going to be your clutch and your clutch control. There's a reason why in your MSF class, that's the very first thing you work on. I'm sure you remember doing your power walking and all that sort of thing. And that's because slow speeds really come down to your finesse of the clutch. So I'll put this bike in first gear, and I just want to be very familiar with where it bites for that first gear engagement. If I'm very familiar with where it bites and very familiar with my steering sweep, that's going to make it easier. The next thing you want to think about is how tall is your motorcycle. So I'm about 5'11". I have a 32-inch inseam, and that grants me the ability to flat foot basically any street motorcycle. I'm very lucky in that way. Most people are either much taller or much shorter. I kind of fit right there in that Goldilocks zone. But being able to flat foot your bike comfortably also is going to give you an ability to maneuver in slow speeds a lot easier. So that allows you to just kind of have a handle on the motorcycle. And I would say just really feel familiar with what it feels like to kind of just do something like this with your bike, you know? So get familiar with that full lock to lock, get familiar with the clutch and all that. And then the final piece of this puzzle is going to be the rear brake. Now the rear brake is probably your best friend when it comes to slow speed maneuvers. This is what helps stabilize the machine at slow speeds. And I'm going to tell you guys a bit of a controversial take here, but I don't really think you need the front brake hardly at all until you get up above about 10 miles per hour. Because most of the time, if you have a sharp input to the front brakes while you're riding slow, the bike is going to misbehave. Let me show you what I mean. So if I take off here and I ride slowly and I say, oh, I want to go left, and then all of a sudden I tap the front brake, you see, the bike already wanted to basically just fall over, and I had my leg ready to catch it. So you pretty much never want to use your front brakes when it comes to riding a motorcycle in slow speeds. We're going to go ahead and get this bike turned around, and you'll see that I'm activating the rear brake while I do it. And when you go really slow like this, and kind of do these really small maneuvers, you see that I'm balancing the motorcycle, and what I'm doing is I'm actually using the friction zone and the rear brake to create stability. I'm adding a little bit of gyroscopic motion in the engine, adding the rear brake, and I have stability and control over this motorcycle. But if I don't, I'm doing the left foot down. Once you get your left foot down over here, that's where it all comes together, because if you're familiar with the steering sweep, you got the rear brake. I'm making producer Logan work double time over here. You get the left foot down, it all comes together, because then what you're really going to practice is this move right here. You're going to go forward, left foot down. Go forward, clutch in, right brake, left foot down. I say right brake, right leg, rear brake. So I'll show you guys from the other angle here. I'll quickly flip a little U-turn. We're making producer Logan work for it today, folks. And I'll show you guys from this behind here so you can see the brake light a little bit, and you can see how I'm doing this. So you go forward, clutch in, rear brake, left foot down. And that's really the easiest way to do those kind of slow speed maneuvers. But let's say you're not ready for that. You kind of just want to waddle a little bit. There's nothing wrong with doing the old power walk and waddle like you learned in your MSF. You know, in some of our videos we said, hey, if you're leaving from a light, you want to do so confidently. You want to do that kind of like easy getaway like that, you know, with the rear brake, nice and easy with the 1 foot. But most of the time, you know, you can, I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking away from a, you know, parking lot situation, kind of waddling a little bit like this, you know, that's fine. You know, you can use the front brake a little bit whenever you're perfectly upright. Because again, if you're turning one way or the other, don't use that front brake. It's going to cause the motorcycle to tip over. Let me show you that again really quick. When you use that front brake in a way that causes the bike to tip. So let's say you're turning in like this and then front brake. See, the bike already wanted to go. And so when I do that, it's just already tipping over. So again, I really don't think you should use that front brake pretty much at all. Now, let's talk about a concept called counter leaning, because a lot of people get really tripped up about this. Here's the thing. I'm going to turn off the bike so you guys really get a sense for what I'm saying, because this part's really important. Pay attention. Okay. So the motorcycle works by counter steering. That happens all the time. And that means you push left to go left, you push right to go right. And the bars go in the opposite direction. When you're going really slowly, that effect is not as pronounced. And it can kind of feel like you're doing the opposite. The bike does always counter steer. I think this is a common misconception. But when you're going really slow speeds, that initial tip in and then the front wheel travels in that direction. So some people like to say that counter steering only works above a certain amount of speed. Not necessarily true, not exactly true. It always works. It just feels different when you're going slow speeds. So again, you got to think about the motorcycle in how fast it's going and where the gyroscopes are and what it wants to do, right? In slow speeds, the bike feels like it wants to tip over. In faster speeds, bike wants to stay upright. So what can you do as a rider? When you're going faster, typically you lean with the motorcycle as you counter steer to correctly put your body weight. When you're going slow speeds, a really nice technique to do is actually lean the opposite direction. So you'll actually tip the bike in and push your body sort of this way. And that feels a little weird to do and to think about at first, but it actually makes it feel a lot more natural. So I'm gonna run a couple circles here and I'll show you guys, priming producer Logan to, you know, do the right thing over here. So we'll take off here in first gear and I'll show you guys. I'm gonna get my butt off to the side of the seat over here, all the way over here. Because if I'm gonna do a really tight maneuver, I can put my foot down and I'm counter leaning. I'm against the motorcycle like this. And lefts are usually easier because you got your throttle hand here on the right hand side of the bike. So it's easier whenever you have your throttle up high like this. You have full control over it. You can clutch it in, you can add gas, and you're counter leaning, and it's easier than if you were to do like this. This already feels really awkward for me, I'm not gonna lie. If I'm trying to do like proper track day, body position, going slow speeds, it doesn't really work very well. But if you get on the other side, you find that you can add quite a bit of lean to the motorcycle without it really being an issue. And I'm starting to get a little dizzy, so I'm actually gonna flip around and go right and show you guys. So then you tip it in the opposite direction. Now you have more clutch control on the left-hand side of the bike, and it's a little awkward because you're on the right, but all you got to do is just sit there and practice it a little bit, and it eventually becomes quite a bit second nature. And really, you know, when it comes to street riding, all you're doing is just, you know, making sure you don't drop the bike, making sure that you are not you know, riding in an unsafe way. It's all about just getting through whatever obstacle you have to get through. That's why I was saying, if you want to start off, you want to waddle a little bit, there's really no problem to doing that. If you have a really tight maneuver and you don't feel comfortable, you know, oftentimes, like let's say I want to get the bike pointed that way, but you know, it's just too tight for me to actually do that while I'm on the motorcycle. Well, there's really nothing wrong with simply getting off the bike. There's nothing wrong with getting off the bike and just being like, all right, like it's a bit tight, so I'm just gonna put the kickstand up, maybe just roll it back to where I need to, Maybe just get it pointed the other way. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I feel comfortable. And then you get on, and then you go along your merry way. So that's also a possibility, right? Learning how to manipulate your motorcycle in slow speeds while literally not being on top of it, right? So I'll show you guys how to do that. Bike's in neutral, put the kickstand down, and you can leave it running. You don't have to have the bike turned off. If it makes you feel more comfortable to turn it off, go ahead and do so. But all you do is put one right hand over here on the seat, put one left hand over here on this side, and you get the bike up. Once the bike is up, all you gotta do is just balance it. And if you see, it takes extremely little effort to balance the bike. I've got 2 fingers on the machine, and that's really about it. That's all it takes right here to just balance the bike. So then you want to put the kickstand up. I know that's going to scare some of you, and remember to put it down whenever you put it back the right way. Trust me, I've done this plenty of times where I got the kickstand down, and I thought I had it down, and I dropped the bike. So then to pull it backwards, you always want to have this leading hand right here. And look where you're going, you know? Turn the bike, position it, maneuver it. And again, if it makes you feel more comfortable to have it off so you don't accidentally rev it while you're moving it and you're like, oh no, I'm scared. It's okay, turn it off. You go this way, you can go this way. This is all part of maneuvering it in slow speeds, and it's all really important to be able to do so. So then once you're in a position that you want to be in, get it as upright as you can, put that kickstand down, make sure it's fully down, pull it towards you, and down it goes. And that's pretty much it when you want to move it like that, making it a little slower. So, at what speed do you stop doing the kind of like awkward counter-leaning but not really counter-steering thing? Again, it happens at about 10 miles an hour, but I'll show you guys. I'm gonna ride into producer Logan here a little bit, and I'll show you at a certain speed when I push left to right, you'll see that front wheel do the thing where it kind of goes right then left and left and right. So I'll demonstrate that for you guys. So, 10 miles an hour, left, right, left. And if you see it in slow motion, you could probably see it doing the thing. We'll do it one more time. We'll go a little slower. So again, all motorcycles work the same way. They all have the same principle. Some of them are lower down, shallower steering sweep, right? Like actually our giveaway 2.0 has a ridiculously shallow steering sweep. It's actually quite funny moving it in the shop because you have to like 9-point turn it versus like a nice adventure bike like this. It's got a really wide steering sweep. And the other thing you gotta think about too is there's bikes that are designed to ride in slow speeds better. I think of something like a scooter or even this adventure bike. The weight is really down low and the rider is really up high and you got a lot of leverage over the machine. That makes it a lot easier to ride in slow speeds. You'll notice that some machines are easier to ride in slower speeds than others, and that's simply because of the way they're designed. So if you're riding a super sport, you might say, oh my God, this thing's so awkward to ride in slow speeds. How the heck do those guys do those like gymkhana type of things? And that's a lot of skill and practice, because really all those bikes want to do is just go fast in a straight line and sometimes corner on a racetrack, versus something like this designed to do 10, 20 miles per hour on bumpy terrain, on awkward terrain, and you're supposed to go slow with it. But every bike can be ridden confidently at slow speeds, and just progress slowly, you know, take your time, develop the skill sets. I know it's a little boring and it kind of feels like MSF rider coach work to just sit there in a parking lot and familiarize yourself, but that really is going to be one of the best things to do so that you don't have those awkward moments in the parking lots at slow speeds and you just feel like a more confident rider. Like I think, for example, like if you get on your motorcycle, you turn it on, you put it down into first gear, you get your foot on the rear brake, and you just pop a nice confident U-turn. You know, you look like a rider that knows what they're doing versus, you know, waddling and doing all that other stuff. And it's not to say that you always want to look like you know what you're doing and that's, you know, the only thing that matters, but having that confidence will breed better riding over time, I promise. All right, so here's something I want you to try when you're on your motorcycle next time to improve your slow speed ridings. So, get on your bike, turn it on, and then what I want you to do is see what it's like to take off with the machine with the full steering lock and really practice that clutch control. So you put the clutch in, tilt it all the way over, and then of course get your foot on the rear brake too, and assume this position of full lock, rear brake, and then hand on the throttle. And then just kind of like move forward a little bit. You can waddle if you want. You can just use that left leg and just kind of do like this, you know, and just kind of see how that feels. Just like that. And then if you want, you go right into Producer Logan and then do the same thing. Keep it a little more upright, waddle a little bit if you need to, right? If it feels awkward, just do both legs. You could put your left leg up and then just use the clutch and the brake, or the clutch and the throttle, just like this. Pull in the clutch when you don't want to move anymore. And that's going to be really good practice. I know it looks a little silly, but it can be really good practice for you to just kind of get familiar with how your bike feels at full lock when you no longer have the ability to actually turn it a little bit more. And then if you want to have some fun with your motorcycle while you're out there, you can try little figure eights. So I like to do this when I'm bored, if we're out filming or something. I'll kind of go like this, get my feet totally up. I don't like putting my feet down. Do a little right movement, left movement, making sure I don't hit Producer Logan. Go to the right, go to the left. And that's a really fun way to just kind of like feel it out, you know? And then you can add that in if you want to just like bank in a U-turn without putting your foot down. You could try the same thing on the right, which is a little more challenging for people. Bank in that U-turn going right. And just kind of play around with your bike, you know? Have some fun with it. Goof off a little bit. Maybe if you have a bike that has no ABS at the rear, you slide the rear a little bit, just have a good time. Because the point of this is to have fun, right? The point of it is to increase your skill set, have a little bit of fun, and just, I really believe once you have that fluidity with the slow speed maneuvers, riding the motorcycle becomes a lot easier. You then go out to the street and you're like, okay, like, you know, it's a totally different skill set. Now we're talking trail braking. Now we're talking leaning with the motorcycle. Now we're talking, you know, adjusting your speed for the corner and looking through. You know, having these skills here kind of already primes you to get ready to do that stuff too. So it's all about the foundations, right? Like you want to get this nice and sorted so that later on you go out on the street and you're already like, okay, like, got a good amount of familiarity with this bike, really in tune with it, and yeah, it's going to feel really good. The other thing I would say too is, you know, we mentioned not using the front brake while turning. Never stab the front brake. Don't really use a lot of pressure in slow speeds. But what you can do that's really good though is do straight up and down front brake maneuvers just to get a really good sense of what this lever is actually going to do. So this is something I really recommend for people to do is, you know, go forward, clutch in and full brake. And just feel it kind of dive and kind of feel what it feels like, you know, to have that proper pressure. And then once you're ready to, you know, for example, you can come in, add brake, and then slightly trail off at the end is a fun way to not have it dive a bunch. So that's a really fun slow speed maneuver you can try. So again, I'll show you guys the difference. I'm going to come towards Producer Logan and not do that trail off, and I'm just going to have the suspension totally bounce me back. But it's good practice for emergencies, right? You come in hot like this. A little bit ABS at the end. You see how much bounce back I got, right? Let's go back and try it again with a nice little bit of trailing. And again, it's super important to not do this with any kind of inputs to the front end. You want to be perfectly straight up and down when you're experimenting with this. So now we'll try this. Coming in and then little bit of release. That's that trail braking. That's that first step of like really figuring out how to like ease off that brake. And it's actually something you do in the Yamaha Champ School. Shout out to those guys. That was a really fun exercise when I did the course back in 22, I think. Just a nice little shout out to them. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, like it really teaches you to like, you know, be nice and smooth with that front brake pressure. And you can practice it just like, you know, seeing how much you can do and how controlled you can get it to be, right? Because a lot of times people will say, oh, my front brakes are, you know, like, I got too much suspension dive and et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes it's all about technique, right? Like, I can make this bike collapse the front suspension in a really awkward way. I can go like that, you know, and then it's super awkward, right? Like if I just go and I'm like, oh man, dude, my suspension doesn't work right, bro. I need to get some Öhlins on this thing. But actually, it's technique, right? If you work with it, it's much more controlled, much more smooth. There's so much finesse and nuance to the front brake. And if you go out and practice those slow speeds, you'll definitely start figuring it out and getting it. But boys, that's about the limit of my knowledge on slow speed maneuvers. There's more fun stuff like sliding the rear, doing little wheelies, and then you start getting into like stunting and all that sort of thing, which I am no good at. But if this video was helpful, please leave a comment down below. I hope to see you riding safe and having fun in 2026. Make sure to head over to yamanube.co and support the show. Become a member. You get access to our giveaway motorcycles, our incredible Discord community, which is fighting the onslaught of AI slop. Those are real degenerate cringe weirdos on there ready to help you with motorcycling. I think it's a beautiful human-to-human connection. So if you're tired of scrolling, you want to talk to some people, hang out with some people, join on yamanube.co. Our Discord server is awesome. Thanks so much for checking out today's video. I appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.